Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping in for a really high stakes look at how the entire world of medicine is changing.
It really is.
We're talking about something called Pharma 4.0. Now, that might sound like a technical software update, but it's the absolute reality of the digital transformation sweeping through the pharma supply chain.
hmm
So, if you're looking for that essential shortcut to understanding how drugs will be discovered, made, and delivered in the very near future, well, this deep dive is your blueprint.
I think you framed that perfectly. And it's so important to establish up front that this isn't some sudden, chaotic revolution.
Right.
It's an evolution. It's
Yeah.
built directly on industrial history. We basically define Pharma 4.0 as the application of the fourth industrial revolution. So
Yeah.
digitalization, connectivity,
All the good stuff.
all that stuff, but applied directly to the complex, and I mean highly regulated,
Yes.
world of pharmaceutical manufacturing.
That distinction is just critical, isn't it? Because unlike, say, retail, where disruption can happen overnight, the stakes here are actual human lives. Every move is governed.
Exactly. And that's really our mission today. We're going to unpack not just the tech that's driving this change, but the structured models that are guiding it, the massive financial incentives pushing it forward, and maybe most importantly, the really profound human and cultural challenges.
Which are often the biggest hurdles.
They almost always are.
Okay, so let's unpack this starting with a little bit of history. We all kind of know the previous industrial revolutions. The first was mechanization, steam power.
Right.
The second was electrification, mass production. The third brought us automation, electronics, IT, and now we're firmly in the fourth, which is all about smart systems and data.
And Pharma 4.0 is where that big general concept, Industry 4.0, really hits the road in this super specialized way. It integrates technologies like AI, IoT, and the cloud with these really rigid quality standards from the International Council for Harmonization, the ICH guidelines.
Those are the global rules for drug safety and quality.
They're the Bible.
Yeah.
So the industry just can't move at Silicon Valley speed. It has to balance innovation with patient safety.
It's a very delicate balancing act.
That's precisely why we call it an evolution. You have to validate every single step. You can't just, flip a switch on a new process. You have to prove its quality and consistency to regulators before it ever touches a product for a patient.
So if you're a massive pharma enterprise, how do you even begin to coordinate this? An overhaul across R&D, manufacturing, distribution. It sounds like chaos without some kind of plan.
It would be total chaos. And that's why the industry looked for a standardized roadmap. The International Society for Pharmaceutical Engineering, or ISPE, they provided that blueprint.
Okay.
It's an operating model that guides implementation through 4 key interconnected quadrants.
Yeah.
And they all have to advance together.
And if they're not aligned, the whole thing just stalls out, right? So
Yeah.
what are these 4 pillars?
So first is resources. That's your personnel, your equipment, the software tools. Then information systems,
Ooh.
the actual digital infrastructure, how data flows.
Okay.
Third is organization and processes, so the workflows, the reporting structures. And finally, and this is the big one, culture.
Culture.
The mindsets, the behaviors, the readiness of the people to actually adapt. The sources we looked at are crystal clear. If the culture quadrant fails, the technical investment in the other 3 will just collapse.
That makes perfect sense. You can buy the most amazing AI in the world, but if your people don't trust it or just keep doing things the old way, the system is useless.
It's inert.
Yeah.
Exactly. And companies don't just jump straight to this smart environment. They have to figure out where they're starting from.
So there's a maturity scale.
Absolutely. Our sources highlight 6 progressive stages. It starts with computerization.
Yeah.
That's kind of the pre-digital stage where you have islands of automation, but they're not connected.
So isolated pockets of tech. What's next?
Connectivity. This is where systems are managed, but they're still in silos. Maybe the manufacturing floor isn't talking to the quality lab in real time.
Okay.
But once you break down those silos, you get to stage 3, visibility. Now you can see the whole process chain, usually on some kind of central dashboard.
And once you can see everything in real time, the next step isn't just seeing, it's acting on it. That takes us to what? Transparency.
It does. Transparency is when those real-time metrics are actually integrated into strategic decisions. And that leads to predictability, where AI and analytics start forecasting not just what happened, but what will happen.
And the ultimate goal, the top of the mountain for Pharma 4.0, is adaptability.
That's the pinnacle.
where the system essentially learns and self-optimizes.
Precisely. Adaptability means systems can autonomously respond to new inputs, adjusting manufacturing, rerouting supplies based on live data, all without constant human intervention. Very few organizations are truly there yet.
Which really underlines why having that roadmap is so critical. But that roadmap is completely reliant on technology. So let's get into the toolkit. What's actually creating this smart plant floor?
The fundamental backbone is digitalization, and this is achieved through the Internet of Things, or IoT.
Right.
We're talking about interconnected sensors, instruments, equipment embedded everywhere.
Right.
The revolutionary part is this turns data that used to be on paper or stuck in one machine into a real-time digital format you can act on instantly.
And when you have that just immense live stream of data, that's where AI and machine learning become absolutely essential.
Instrumental in two huge areas. First is upstream. In drug discovery, AI can analyze massive chemical libraries and genomic data way faster than humans, finding patterns to speed up R&D.
And the second area, which is critical for our focus today.
That's downstream in the supply chain. AI analyzes all that data demand, logistics, quality, even things like weather. To enable incredibly precise forecasting, it moves it from a best guess to an evidence-based prediction.
We're also seeing a huge shift in the manufacturing process itself, this move to continuous manufacturing with automation and robotics.
Oh, it's one of the most visible changes.
Hmm.
Traditional manufacturing is a batch process.
Hmm.
You do step one, you stop. You do step two, you stop.
Right.
Continuous manufacturing runs 24/7. Raw materials go in one end, finished product comes out the other. Smart factories use robotics for all the high-precision, repetitive tasks.
And why is that considered so much better in this 4.0 world?
The benefits are huge. A smaller physical footprint, faster time to market, and maybe most critically, it reduces human error and ensures a really consistent, high-quality product.
And it frees people up to do more complex work.
Exactly. They're supervising the system, not just doing routine operations. But, none of this works without a powerful infrastructure to handle all the data.
We're talking enormous amounts of data. Research, clinical trials, manufacturing parameters.
It's mind-boggling. That's where big data and cloud computing come in. Cloud platforms aren't just for storage. They're essential for securely sharing data across the globe for collaborations and clinical trials. It enables decision-making across the whole value chain.
So let's talk about why this is all happening now. Why is this shift not just an option, but an absolute imperative?
Well, because the existing system is, frankly, expensive and incredibly vulnerable.
The scale of the inefficiency is just staggering. Our sources say pharmaceutical companies waste about $25 billion a year on supply chain problems alone.
$25 billion. And that waste is driven by that bad forecasting, which leads to this classic dilemma. Do you overstock and risk your expensive temperature-sensitive drugs expiring? Or do you understock and create critical shortages for patients?
And the complexity of the network just makes it worse. I was stunned by that example from one Asian country. Over 10,000 manufacturing facilities, 65,000 stockists, 550,000 pharmacists.
It's not a supply chain. It's a logistical maze that's impossible to manage manually. And that's what the digital supply chain fixes. It replaces that linear siloed system with a connected network where you can see everything end to end, and we have real proof of the impact.
Let's talk about that wholesale distributor case study.
It's a fantastic example. So this distributor used AI-driven cloud software. And it wasn't just tracking inventory. The AI analyzed gross margin, demand, volume, even external things like commodity prices and regional weather forecasts.
And the results.
They hit a 99% demand fulfillment rate.
Right.
And saved tens of millions of dollars. It just shows the massive ROI on this kind of deep data analysis.
And for those crucial temperature-sensitive drugs like vaccines, integrity is everything. The move to IoT loggers is a game changer there.
It's a huge leap for the cold chain. Old USB loggers only tell you something went wrong after the product is already ruined.
Right, it's too late.
It's too late. Smart IoT loggers give you real-time temperature data during transit. You get an alert, and you can intervene before the damage is done. It's non-negotiable for modern vaccines and biologicals.
And then there's the threat of counterfeits. That's where blockchain comes in, to establish trust.
Blockchain gives you that immutable, unchangeable record of every single transaction from the factory to the pharmacy. It's powerful for preventing counterfeits. For instance, analytics can track scan frequency. if one package gets scanned 10 times in 10 different places.
That's a huge red
It's an
flag.
immediate red flag for malicious activity.
It's no surprise this is powering enormous market growth.
Yeah.
The digital supply chain market was nearly $1 billion in 2022, and it's projected to almost double to $1.84 billion by 2030.
And it's not just about efficiency. You have to realize that regulations are actively demanding these kinds of digital systems.
Let's talk about compliance. How does something like the FDA's 21 CFR Part 11 push companies in this direction?
So 21 CFR Part 11 is all about electronic records and electronic signatures, or EREs.
Yeah.
For decades, the industry ran on paper and wet ink signatures.
Mm-hmm.
Part 11 says that digital records have to be just as trustworthy as paper. They have to be accurate, verifiable, and most importantly, tamper-resistant.
And older systems just can't meet that standard, especially on the audit trail.
Exactly. With Pharma 4.0, every sensor reading, every quality check, every operator action is captured digitally with a secure timestamp and an automated, unchangeable audit trail. It's really the only way to prove continuous compliance at scale. You can show exactly who did what, when, and why.
And then there's the new EU GMP Annex 1, which came into effect in 2023. That's for sterile manufacturing, right?
That's another major driver. The revised Annex 1 puts a huge emphasis on having a comprehensive contamination control strategy, or CCS, and using quality risk management, QRM.
Okay.
Your old systems just can't do the kind of data mapping and real-time monitoring needed to meet those requirements.
Yeah.
Pharma 4.0, with its IoT sensors and AI, gives you the tools to proactively manage that risk.
So the benefits are clear. Financial, operational, that Deloitte report mentioned a 20% cut in operational costs and a 10% boost in product availability and regulatory. But it all has to come back to the patient.
It absolutely has to. The ultimate goal of Pharma 4.0 is better patient care, especially by accelerating personalized medicine. By analyzing huge amounts of data, genetic data, patient-specific data, we can move away from the one-size-fits-all drug model.
And how does the factory floor adapt to making personalized medicine?
Through flexibility. If you need to tailor a dose for one person's genetic makeup, you need a system that can switch production quickly. This is where you see modular facilities and even additive manufacturing, like 3D printing of medicines. You can actually produce a batch size of one.
So we've got the tech, the financial motivation, the regulatory push. Why isn't every company already at that final stage, adaptability?
Because the technology is only half the battle. And honestly, it's often the easier half. You've got technical hurdles like making sure different systems can all talk to each other, and of course, massive data security needs.
But the sources all stress that the biggest challenge is that culture quadrant we talked about at the start, the people.
Exactly. Institutional muscle memory is incredibly powerful. Imagine you're a supervisor who, for 20 years, has physically printed a batch record, initialed it, and filed it in a cabinet.
Right, that's the process.
That is the process. And now you're asking them to just trust a digital audit trail. There's a deep-seated reluctance to change and a lot of confirmation bias, a belief that the old way is just safer.
And there's the very real fear that automation is going to eliminate jobs.
Of course, it creates this huge bottleneck. To succeed, the whole narrative has to shift away from human versus machine to human enhanced by machine. You have to communicate the why. How does this actually help the employees?
So what does that benefit look like for someone on the factory floor?
It means they're freed from boring, repetitive tasks like manual data entry. Instead, they're moving into roles where they're supervising systems, solving complex problems, interpreting predictive analytics.
But that requires a big investment in upskilling.
A huge investment, training people not just on the new software, but on data literacy, on critical thinking.
And this all needs a strategy. You can't just buy AI for the sake of buying AI.
Absolutely not. You need a dedicated adoption roadmap. You have to define your AI strategy, your data architecture, your governance. Without that structure, you just end up with a bunch of expensive, disconnected tech that doesn't help the business. You have to start small, prove the value, and use those wins to get people on board.
This has been fascinating. It's so clear that Pharma 4.0 isn't just about faster production. It's a monumental shift that changes everything about how medicines are discovered, made, and distributed. It's essential for staying competitive and ultimately for delivering better treatments.
The tools are here, the financial pressure is on, and the regulators are demanding it. But if you look to the future, the success of this whole digital era in pharma, it's not going to hinge on the next piece of hardware or the newest sensor.
So what will be the defining factor?
I think it's going to hinge entirely on the industry's ability to maintain strategic alignment. How do you manage that inherent tension between the speed of tech innovation, which is just incredibly fast, and the necessary slowness and rigor of regulatory evolution, and crucially, cultural acceptance. That human component, that's the heaviest part of the equation. And it's the one that will determine who really succeeds in delivering the promise of Pharma 4.0 to patients around the world. That's the challenge to keep thinking about.